Good morning, world. It's a dark day in this country, and we are headed toward extreme extremes in many ways. We're headed toward oligarchy. We're headed toward almost fascist sorts of initiatives. And it's because of MAGA and Trump and his billionaire supporters. And we have some great comments here to consider.
Sox fan, and one of the most famous players in Red Sox recent history is Manny Ramirez. Manny Ramirez was a good baseball player, but he had a habit of doing some pretty ridiculous things on the field and off the field that were really detrimental to the team. Some really bizarre on-field behavior, cutting off throws from other outfielders before they got to the infield, bizarre off-the-field behavior that disrupted the team. It became so regular that a phrase was adopted amongst the Red Sox fans: that's just Manny being Manny. And over the years, it just was accepted that every year Manny Ramirez was going to do a whole bunch of stuff that was really detrimental to the team. And over time, it just kind of became accepted that that was a fact of life, a way of life with Manny Ramirez. And as time went on, people reacted less hostilely. It barely got noticed in some cases when he was engaged in these.
This is how empathy dies. This channel's about empathy and forms of empathy that give us our virtues. And he's talking about how it dies.
Detrimental forms of conduct. And I tell that story because it stands for a kind of universal concept. When bad behavior gets normalized, it no longer feels like bad behavior, even if that behavior is hurting people. Today, the world is littered with corrupt governments where the leaders and the really rich men who surround the leaders, the oligarchs, they steal from people. That's what they do. The leaders and the leaders' friends just keep a hand constantly in the government treasury, and they steal taxpayer dollars. They rig the rules of the economy in order to make themselves fabulously rich. They hurt the citizens of those countries. Vladimir Putin, for instance, has never had a job outside of government, but he's reportedly worth $200 billion. One of his many houses cost $1.4 billion to build. Supposedly, the landscaping costs on an annual basis for that house are $2 million alone. That $1.4 billion house was paid for by money he stole from the Russian treasury. In other words, he stole it from the Russian people. Putin and his friends have been doing it for so long and doing it so openly and brazenly. Putin, for instance, wears a watch that retails for $500,000, for $500,000, even though his official salary is only $140,000. They've been doing this so openly and brazenly, they're so public in their corruption in Russia, that it's just accepted. It's just mainstream, the fact that Putin and his cronies steal from the Russian people. That's what's happening in America today. And it's heartbreaking for me to say this. But in the first 6 months of the Trump presidency, Trump and Elon Musk and their billionaire friends have engaged in a stunning rampage of open public corruption. It's not fundamentally different than what happened in Russia. These are efforts to steal from the American people to enrich themselves. And their strategy is to do it all out in the open, to do it at such a dizzying pace that the country just gets overwhelmed or anesthetized or dulled into a sense that we just all have to accept the corruption, or maybe more charitably, that
you see what he's saying here. This dulling means that empathy's dying. You know, the empathy requires that we feel, because it's about sharing the feeling of another. And empathy in its various forms is again the root of our virtues. We have naturally inborn virtues. We don't need a holy book to tell us what's wrong. but we can become so anesthetized to bad behavior and selfish sorts of actions that have no level of virtue or empathy, that we become inactive and we don't respond. So it's back to this great guy.
this is just how government works, that government is just corrupt, and so the fact that it's happening out in the open instead of happening secretly, well, it's really nothing new. But this is not how government works. The things that have happened over the last 6 weeks are unprecedented. The president and his billionaire friends are not supposed to steal from us. They are not supposed to use their power and their access to power, their access to government levers, to rig the rules to enrich themselves. That has always been wrong. It is still wrong. And we do not have to accept this. And so in the next few minutes, I want to try out an exercise.
Okay.
I want to try to lay out for you, as quickly as I can, just some of the most significant instances of blatantly corrupt activity that's happened in just the first 6 weeks of Trump's presidency. When you see it all together, there is no way to avoid a simple conclusion. This White House is on its way to being the most corrupt in the history of the country. And just because they are doing it out in the open for everybody to see doesn't mean that it's not corrupt. And my hope is that if you see it all in one place, the gravity of this moment may hit you. My hope is that my colleagues and the public choose not.
One thing to remember is Trump saying that he could shoot someone, in the street, and it wouldn't hurt him at all. No repercussions. Interesting.
To normalize a president or his advisors using the Oval Office as a blunt mechanism to make themselves even wealthier. It is our decision to have zero tolerance for corruption. It's also our decision to just decide to become a place like Russia, where our leaders are allowed to routinely steal from us.
So what do you think? Put it in the comments. Do you want to be like Russia? Is it okay that rich people steal from you? But understand that there are problems with this. children hungry, disease running rampant, global warming moving even faster, moving even faster. It's certainly not a good condition that we're in, and let's hear this great man make his case even stronger.
So this is a heartbreakingly long list. This is just 20 or so examples of corrupt behavior in the first 6 weeks of the Trump presidency. So here it goes. We're going to start on January 17th. On January 17th, Trump launches the meme coin. This is maybe the most corrupt of all the acts, because what is the meme coin? The meme coin is essentially a mechanism by which Russian oligarchs or corporate CEOs can literally send money privately directly to Donald Trump. Nobody knows who buys the meme coin, but Trump makes money when people buy it. And so it is just an open sewer valve that allows for anybody who is trying to influence the Trump administration to be able to secretly funnel money to Donald Trump. He reserves 80% of the coin. He waits to release that coin until the price jumps back up again, which essentially means he's waiting for people who want favors from him to buy a bunch of the coin to inflate the value so that he releases more and makes more money. It's a disgusting kind of corruption, because this is essentially Trump just posting his Venmo for anybody secretly to wire him as much money as they want. We've never seen something like this before, where anybody who has anything to gain from the Trump administration, through a manipulation of the value of Trump's meme coin, can funnel money directly to the president, whisper in his ear, "That was me. That was me that purchased all that coin, that jumped up the value, that allowed you to release new coin. Hey, take care of it."
And consider all of the people that were poor and trusted his coin.
Me on the back end. On January 20th, when he's sworn in, he institutes his new energy agenda. Now, open reporting suggested that during the campaign he met with the oil and gas industry, and they cut a deal in which the oil and gas industry would give him $1 billion of campaign contributions in order to receive favorable treatment when Trump was sworn in. And guess what happens on January 20th? Trump unveils his energy strategy. And what does it do? It preferences oil and gas, and it punishes oil and gas's competitors. It, for instance, freezes all permits on wind projects, both for the land and the sea. It undercuts permitting processes, not for oil and gas, but for oil and gas's competitors. Oil and gas got exactly what they asked for. They gave a campaign contribution, and they got the favorable treatment.
Think about this. This is literally an act which is helping to kill the planet, for human beings. It's an existential threat, and he's ramping it up. Right now, we have a chance to keep global warming from making this planet uninhabitable for us. And some things have already gotten so bad that they're irreversible. And this is what Trump is doing. So, understand how important this is.
5 days later, Trump fires 17 inspectors general. What do inspectors general do? They look for corruption inside of these agencies. What do if you're...
Yeah. All you got to do is fire the judge, fire fire the lawyers who would charge you. Don't you wish you had that ability? Yeah, well, Trump does. And our corrupt Supreme Court is part of the reason for that. And no matter what the Republican Party is having to say, they were headed toward Trump ever since the Southern strategy. All right.
You are trying to engage in corruption, if you are trying to steal from the American people, you fire the inspectors general. 2 days later, on January 27th, Trump fires Gwynne Wilcox from the NLRB. This is the National Labor Relations Board. When she's fired, the National Labor Relations Board cannot function any longer. Why does this matter? Because the person that has been put in charge of reviewing the hirings and firings of these agencies is Elon Musk, who, by the way, has lots of cases before the NLRB. So do the people that are standing behind Trump during the inauguration. Almost all of them have active cases before the NLRB. The billionaires supporting Donald Trump now don't have to worry about the NLRB because on January 27th, the NLRB is rendered powerlessness. 3 days later, on January 30th, Trump awards more than $800,000 worth of stock to several of the board members of the Trump Media and Technology Group. This is the publicly traded company behind his social media platforms. So now his cabinet members, people like Kash Patel and Linda McMahon, are owning equity in Trump's media platform, equity that can be cashed out, sold to people who want to buy them out of their interest at any time. Those people who might want to buy them out, cabinet members, could be individuals with issues before the Department of Education, before the FBI. Yet another avenue in which people who have influence, who want to gain influence inside the Trump administration, have a conduit to be able to move cash from their pocketbooks, from their treasury, from their bank accounts, into the bank accounts of Trump cabinet members.
So how did we get to this terrible situation? A lack of empathy. And how did that empathy die? By exploitation. It is by exploitation of the people that gives us governments that have no empathy. You remember not too long ago when there was this idea that there were massive amounts of poor people taking advantage of the benefits they received, that they really weren't poor. You know, and people bought this. This was for the Republican Party many years before Trump. Vilifying the poor. You hear me? Vilifying the poor. Putting forth the idea that punishment is a great idea. You know, this has been going on with both parties for a long time now. This idea that you're stronger and you're better according to how horribly you treat people who make a mistake in this country. Unbelievable. Not at all in the teachings of Jesus. Not at all. So, Christians, heads up. You're looking at anti-Christian sorts of ideas right now. And I'm not a religious person. But I am religious to the point that I support the love that the religions talk about and the virtue they talk about. Now, why do people keep buying into these things? Well, if you've got a lot of hurt in you, and maybe that hurt in you has hurt a lot of people. Well, what do you do? Well, maybe you become punitive and blame other people for things. It takes the focus right off of you, right off of yourself. As the Buddha said, people have a real problem seeing their own faults, but they can really, really uh, point out the faults of others. And I believe there's a statement like that in Christianity as well. Put it in the comments. But yeah, so we've been headed this way for a long time, folks, and we need to reverse that trend. We started off as an oligarchy. We did, but we've gotten better. We started off owning human beings and selling them on the auction block. Yeah, well, we're better than that now. We're better than Trump. We're better than MAGA. Search inside yourself. Find the empathy within you for yourself. You can become an object of your own empathy. And that's the teaching of this channel. You can do that. And that will help to heal you. It works also in society when we apply empathy. Bless those who curse you, says Jesus. Do good to those who despitefully use you. Wow. That's not a punishing attitude, and I have no desire to punish Trump or any of his people. They're sick, but they need to be stopped from doing the things that they're doing, and if that means jail time, if that's the best we can do, well, try to heal those minds while you have them there. Have a little bit of Buddha and Christ and other great souls in your heart. Try to have a little empathy. But we have to stop this terrible situation. And so, there we go, Mr. Murphy.
Shortly thereafter, we start to see the weaponization of the DOJ.
Wow.
On February 23rd, a civil complaint from DOJ that had been pending against SpaceX.
Okay, now, Department of Justice. That's the DOJ. And it's under the control, it's the head of the DOJ is appointed by the president with the permission of Congress, with their advice at least. Yeah. Well, they've all bent the knee to him, haven't they? All of the Republicans in office. Remember that when you go to vote next time.
Elon Musk's signature company is dropped. 8 days later, the DOJ drops a case against a Republican congressman. On February 19th, 2 or 3 weeks later, the DOJ opens up something called Operation Whirlwind, which seeks to target anyone who dares try to obstruct or criticize the work of Elon Musk and Doge. Over the course of the first few weeks, the DOJ is turned into an entity that drops cases against those who are loyal to Donald Trump and pursues aggressively investigations against those who are trying to criticize Donald Trump.
So much for Elon Musk's support of free speech, right? Yeah, don't be fooled. And this country is this is how a country or any empire falls, is by this kind of corruption. This will be the end, and when it isn't the end, it will be the fall of the entire human race. But our nation was a beacon and a strength for the idea of democracy, which supports the atmosphere in which empathy can thrive, and that means where virtue can thrive. All right? So let's not forget the gravity of what Mr. Murphy is presenting here. It's very serious.
On February 1st, Trump fires the director of the CFPB and announces plans to shutter the Consumer Financial Protection Board. Again, very much like the NLRB, this is an agency that was, at the moment that it was rendered powerless, investigating Elon Musk and many of the biggest financial backers of Donald Trump. So once again, those that have access to Donald Trump, the billionaires that are close to him, now don't have to worry about labor violations being investigated by the NLRB. Now they don't have to worry about consumer protection actions being taken against them by the CFPB.
It's good to point out here at this point how our founding fathers tried to separate powers so that there wouldn't be persecution. Power corrupts. And what you're seeing here is also a collapse of the separation of powers. Everything bending the knee to the greedy and the power mongering. And that's the end of virtue. That's the end. So we can do better than this. And it begins, you don't have to be amazing in what your efforts are. All of us together can do a lot. And we should start right here at home, in our own selves, with the practice of communicating within ourselves to ourselves. That's the mystic path, the objective mystic path, and communicating with empathy. From a counseling, a caregiving, and an artistic, multi-perspective, big picture view. Presenting empathy to yourself can heal your heart and can lead you to the point of remorse for the times that you have not done this for others. So this is the dying of the spirit of America that we're seeing. The spiritual health of this nation has never been more at threat than it is today, I believe. Well, in terms of the direction of the country, we did have slavery going for a long time, and that was terrible. But we got rid of that, and we fought hard on D-Day. So there was some bright spots in the past. But in terms of the direction of this country right now, it's never been going into the direction of the total destruction of democracy. This is the worst days of this country, ushered in by the Republican Party and its direction. And that gave us Trump. And now the good Republicans, having helped to create this monster, are now speaking out against it. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for waking up. But remember, the path to this has been paved before. And we need changes. We need changes in both parties. But one thing I want to point out is the importance of your vote. As long as we're allowed, and you'd say, well, it's just a lesser of evils that I'm voting for. I want you to understand that when you don't vote for the lesser of evils, which is what you would do if you voted, by not voting, you have helped the worst to win. One more time. When you don't vote, you still voted. In a sense, you still voted, but because you've helped the worst to win. So your vote's important, even if it's only the lesser of evils. And if anything's clear as a bell now, the Democratic Party is the lesser of the evils right now. And that's a sad thing. We need two viable parties. Yeah. So, we got a big job ahead, folks. We've got to build up the Democratic Party, but then perhaps we need to split the Democratic Party after that. And so we don't become a one-party system. It's the division of powers. Back, you thought I was lost, but I almost knew where I was going all the time. The division of powers is very important, and that helps to prevent the death of empathy and our spiritual health in this country and around the world.
On February 4th, there is the first of two extraordinary meetings in the White House in which Donald Trump convenes his business partners, the Saudi Golf League and the PGA, to try to negotiate a solution to the dispute between those two golf leagues. Why? Because Trump has a business interest in that dispute being resolved. The Saudi Golf League plays tournaments at Trump's courses in the United States. And so if the White House, using its official power, can try to negotiate a settlement between those two groups, Trump stands to make money. On February 6th, something absolutely stunning happens. Pam Bondi, the AG, issues a memorandum in which she proposes to dull the criminal enforcement of the Foreign Agents Registration Act.
Yeah. Talking about being stunned. If you voted for Trump, he didn't give you anything. He lied about everything. Right? And you bought it. Okay? Fool you once, fool you twice. And the third time? Don't be fooled by Trump and his supporters in the government. Don't be fooled. Not for the fourth or fifth time.
If you are representing a foreign government before the United States, you have to register so that we know if you are acting on behalf of American interests or you are acting on behalf of foreign interests. In the prior Trump administration, Trump officials got in big trouble for secretly working for and getting paid by foreign governments without registering. Well, what does Trump announce? That they are going to limit the applicability of the enforcement of that statute, making it much easier for Trump's friends, for his MAGA crowd, for the people who show up to Mar-a-Lago, to get paid quietly by foreign governments in order to influence Donald Trump. On February 10th, maybe aside from the meme coin, the most stunning act of corruption, the Eric Adams quid pro quo, in which Eric Adams, indicted for corruption, is let off the hook. His charges are dismissed in exchange for the mayor's pledge of political loyalty to Donald Trump. They literally went on TV and announced the deal, that we're getting rid of the charges against Eric Adams as long as the mayor pledges political loyalty to the president. That was so corrupt.
Wow. You can't get worse than that, can you? Yeah. Here we go.
That 6 or 7 DOJ officials resigned because they refused to withdraw those charges. But the deal went through because the 7th or the 8th or the 9th official finally filed the withdrawal. And now in America, it is 100% clear that if you want to get away with corruption, if you want to steal from your constituents and you're an elected official in this country, all you have to do is just sign up for political loyalty with Donald Trump, and he will instruct the Department of Justice to let you get away with it. On February 10th, Donald Trump directs the DOJ to pause enforcement of U.S. laws that prohibit companies from paying bribes overseas. Come on. Come on. He instructs the DOJ to pause enforcement of U.S. laws that prohibit companies to pay bribes overseas. Here's an example. Goldman Sachs was engaged in outright bribery. They were paying bribes to Malaysian officials so that they could get a contract to manage the resources of the Malaysian Sovereign Wealth Fund. American companies should not be overseas bribing foreign governments. That compromises America's reputation and America's national security. But now we're going to pause enforcement of the laws that stop American companies from bribing foreign governments because corruption is now being normalized. This is what you do if you want to normalize corruption, is that you make it legal for American companies to engage in corruption overseas. That makes it easier for Trump to get away with corruption here. 2 days later, on February 12th, the announcement comes out that the State Department is going to buy $400 million of armored Teslas. Okay, so now it's getting even more blatant. It's getting even more brazen. The State Department is just going to buy a whole bunch of product from Elon Musk, product that they were not previously scheduled to buy. It is true that the Biden administration had a blueprint that was going to buy some electric vehicles, but it was around $483,000 worth of vehicles. Trump revises that blueprint of spending so that now the federal government is going to spend $400 million on armored Teslas from Elon Musk. let's see, that's February 12th. That same day, Elon Musk's people infiltrate the Department of Labor, and reporting suggests that during that infiltration, Elon Musk's personal representatives get access to enforcement information at OSHA, not only against Elon Musk's companies, and by the way, SpaceX has an employee injury rate that is 9 times higher than the industry average, but also work.
Okay. Pause. Injury rate of workers. But this has been going on with the Republican Party for a long time. The history is that they wanted to make sure that there wasn't enough people to even make a decision on helping enforce labor laws, protective labor laws. I worked at a company where they didn't have a proper timing for coordinated timing for loading the truck and the truck leaving, and so here comes a kid on a forklift, and the truck's pulling out. Kid goes down. Well, does the company get sued? Well, no. But but the kid gets fired. And, labor laws being as weak as they are, nothing was done about that. Nothing at all. I suggested that they have some kind of timing, put in to verify when that truck is going to be moving out and when it has been loaded and not. And they had a slight effort at that, and then went right back to their norm. That company's still in business. So look at the past. Take a look. That's something that we do in the process that I talk about with the implementation of forms of empathy toward oneself. Empathy toward oneself. Is that consideration of what has occurred to you in the past. Take a look at where things have been, where they are today, and then you will understand better what might happen in the future. So, watch that carefully. Be a scientist and watch that carefully. And what we're seeing today didn't come out of nothing. It came from the Republican Party that turned the total worst choice ever since the Southern Strategy.
Place safety violations against Elon Musk's competitors. Here's the message. If you are close to Donald Trump personally, if you support him politically, you can get secret access to enforcement data against your country, against your companies, and your company's competitors. That's what happens on February 12th. 3 days later, there's some suspicious firings at the FDA, again related to Elon Musk's personal financial interests.
Wow. Now, just remember all of the nice things that Trump seemed to say about people like himself, autocrats like Putin. All of this cozying up that he's done, and this, distancing us from our Democratic allies. That makes us weaker. This cozying up to people who are doing what he's doing now makes sense, doesn't it? That's why he just admires these dictators around the world, like Putin. They're chums. Okay? Why? Because Trump is a would-be dictator. And our generals have said he's a fascist to the core. And one overheard him saying that our troops at D-Day were suckers and losers. And if you voted for that guy, remember the history that brought you this guy. Now that you're turning away from this guy, understand there's a history that brought us there. And be sure and vote for the lesser of evils next time. Until the lesser is even lesser. Until the lesser is even lesser. I'm sorry that I'm not the best presenter in the world, but please subscribe to this channel, and please support Mr. Murphy and the channel that brought us this.
Elon Musk owns a medical device company called Neuralink. It is currently being reviewed by the FDA, and guess what? On February 15th and 16th, all over a weekend, there are 20 people fired from the FDA's Office of Neurological and Physical Medicine Devices. Fired by Doge, run by Elon Musk. Clear message, you're going to get fired if you aren't on the right side of Elon Musk's application. Now, whether that was explicit or not, if the guy who is firing you has a pending application before your department, aren't you going to think twice? Aren't you going to think twice about ruling against his interests? This is why this is all unprecedented. Again, this feels normal because it's been happening every day, but never before in American history have we allowed someone who has a pending application for approval of a medicine or a medical device to be able to personally decide who gets hired and who gets fired at the regulatory agency making the decision over that medical device. But now this stuff is happening every day because on February 15th as well, that same weekend, there's an announcement that the FDA cuts are going to be even deeper, perhaps as big as 50%.
This has been something that the Republicans have done in the past to make sure that there was not enough people to enforce protections on the job, as I mentioned before. And so understand the history. So, and now you can see this corruption entering into what you get as medicine. Doesn't that scare you? Well, this has been a presentation made by your team on the Intermind Communication channel, and I hope that you will subscribe and be sure and check out Mr. Murphy and watch the entire video there. The guy is, he has it nailed. And note that he is a Democrat. Yeah. This is something worldwide too. Please understand. that this channel is not just about the United States, although the United States is a big footprint in the world. This is about what's going on in Canada. So give your comments about what's going on in Canada, in Mexico, wherever you're at. Things like this that are occurring in your country. So become a part of this mission, subscribe, share the videos that you like, be sure and comment. Let the world know, let the world hear from you. And like this video if you do. Be sure to join the resistance against anything and everything that causes the human race to lose a democratic approach in life, which helps empathy and virtue to thrive. Because if we die spiritually as a human race, we die. We will no longer be here. Global warming will be the end of us. But that's not the only way that we can come to an end. And all of that end, that bad end for the human race, is connected to the addictive power and greed that is the enemy of empathy. So, thanks for listening, and yeah, I'm going to sing my song. I like to bless all the people that come on, and please help us reach 5 million subscribers. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand, or her hand, or its hand, however you see the supreme reality. And remember, you're not just in a world full of wonder, you're part of that wonder. Blessings.